You've tuned in to the unavailing frequency. But don't touch that dial. We've got you right where we want you.
This is Welcome to Harrow, account number 4, The Good Samaritan. If you read the third report, you know that they figured out how to use authority to make a stop. But the thing about a police siren is that it triggers a fight or flight response. Some people pull over, but others, like the college kid in account 3, panic and hit the gas. The things in Harrow must have realized that authority is a flawed trap. It's too aggressive. So they pivoted to a much more reliable human instinct: compassion. I'm an off-duty EMT. I'm hardwired to run toward a disaster. If I see a wreck, I don't keep driving. I pull over. I grab my trauma bag and I go to work. It's a muscle memory reflex. And whatever is running this town somehow knows about it. It was late April. I was driving my old Jeep Wrangler cross country, moving from a precinct in Salt Lake City to a new gig in Chicago. The setup was exactly the same as the others. The GPS flatlined into a gray abyss. The orange detour signs funneled me off of I-80 and onto the teeth-rattling dirt road, eventually smoothed out into that impossible jet black asphalt. The dead silence fell over the car. The bugs vanished from the windshield. Up ahead, those bruised, pale yellow streetlights pierced through the darkness. I slowed down as I passed the Welcome to Harrow sign. I hadn't read these forums yet. I just thought it was a weird, hyper-isolated farm town. Then my headlights washed over the wreck. Right in the middle of Main Street, a silver minivan had slammed head-on into a cast-iron streetlight. The hood was violently crumpled. A thick plume of gray smoke was billowing from the engine block. I slammed on the brakes. I threw the Jeep into park, and I grabbed my medical bag from the passenger seat. I didn't even think about the eerie silence or the fact that there was no water leaking from the radiator. There were no skid marks on the pristine asphalt. My adrenaline spiked. I ran toward the van. "Hey, can you hear me? EMS, are you hurt?" I yelled, my voice completely swallowed by the heavy, dead air of the town. The driver's side door was hanging open. A woman was laying on her back on the pavement, clutching at her stomach. As I got closer, I heard her crying. But this wasn't a normal cry. It sounded like an audio file on a 2-second loop. Sob, sniffle, gasp. Sob, sniffle, gasp. The rhythm was mathematically perfect. The pitch never changed. I dropped to my knees beside her. She was wearing a gray tracksuit. Her face was contorted into a mask of pure agony. Her eyes squeezed tight, her mouth stretched wide, but there were no tears on her cheeks. "I am experiencing the pain," she wailed, her voice projected with that flat, metallic reverb the trucker mentioned. "The eternal damage is severe. Help me." Okay, I'm right here. Don't move your neck," I said, unzipping my bag. "Where does it hurt?" "I am experiencing the pain," she repeated exactly. I reached out to check her carotid pulse. The moment my fingers pressed against her neck, a shock of pure revulsion sent me reeling backward. Her skin was room temperature. It felt like smooth, heavy silicone stretched over steel piping. There was no pulse, no heartbeat, not even the subtle, vibrating hum of human blood flowing through veins. Just a solid, unyielding density. I stared at her. My brain was desperately trying to process the medical impossibility of what I was touching. And that's when I noticed the blood. There was a puddle of crimson liquid pooling beneath her stomach. But it wasn't blood. Blood is viscous. It oxidizes, it turns brown. It follows the grooves of the pavement. But this liquid was blindingly, perfectly red, like acrylic paint. And it had pulled into a flawless, mathematically perfect circle. What are you?" My hands backing away from my trauma bag, the woman's eyes snapped open. They were dead. Flat brown disc, no pupils, no depth. Her face instantly relaxed from the mask of agony into a blank, smooth, and motionless state. The looping audio file of her crying abruptly cut off. "Why did you halt your vehicle?" she asked. The volume of her synthesized voice was so loud it rattled the loose debris on the pavement. I thought you were hurt, I stammered, scrambling backwards on my hands and feet. Hurt? She repeated. She sat up. She didn't use her arms to push herself off the ground. Her torso simply hinged upward in a flawless 90-degree angle defying gravity. She reached out and grabbed my wrist. Her grip was like a steel vice. The pressure was instantaneous and crushing. I felt my radius and ulna groan under the pressure. You observed the simulation of damage, she droned, her face inches from mine, smelling violently of ozone and hot copper. Demonstrate the pity. Show us the face of the rescuer. Let me go! I screamed, thrashing wildly as I swung my free fist, punching her squarely in the jaw. It was like punching a cinder block. My knuckles split open. A jolt of agonizing pain shot up my arm and to my shoulder. Her head didn't even twitch. Swish, swish, swish. I heard the synchronized sound of gliding footsteps. I looked frantically over my shoulder. The empty street was suddenly crowded. At least 40 of them. Men, women, teenagers. They had formed a perfect, tightly packed circle around us. They were bathed in that sickly, yellow streetlight. Every single one of them was holding a small black notebook. They were staring down at me, their flat brown eyes unblinking, their pens hovering over the paper. They weren't there to help her. They were there to observe me. They were running a clinical trial on human empathy, and I was the lab rat caught in the maze. Demonstrate the pity, the crowd chanted in unison, their synthesized voices overlapping into a deafening metallic chorus. Panic took over. With my free hand, I reached out to the side pocket of my EMT pants, grabbed my heavy steel trauma shears, and drove the blunt tip as hard as I could into the crook of the woman's elbow. There was a loud snap, like thick plastic breaking. Her arm jerked, her grip loosened just a fraction of an inch. I ripped my wrist free, leaving a layer of skin behind, and scrambled to my feet. I abandoned my trauma bag. I shoved past a man in a mail carrier uniform. He felt as heavy as a bronze statue. I sprinted for the Jeep. I dove into my driver's side seat, slammed the door, and threw it into reverse. As I backed away, my headlights illuminated the crowd. They hadn't moved to chase me. They were just standing in that perfect circle around the woman in the crashed minivan. But as I shifted into drive, every single one of them raised their notebooks and began to furiously write. I floored it out of Harrow. My bruised wrist was throbbing, my bloody knuckles gripping the steering wheel. I hit the dirt road, the GPS snapping back to life, and the freezing night wind howled back into the cabin. I don't stop for broken down cars anymore. I don't care if there's smoke. I don't care if someone is crying, because they've figured out our biggest weakness. They know that a good person can't ignore a cry for help. And if you fall for that diorama of tragedy, you're going to become a permanent part of their exhibit.